Hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of our 500k guarantee final table review. This is a final table that I made in 2007. It was the first Sunday major final table that I had ever made, and I thought it would be fun to go back and go over with you while I was in New York. So if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, check out part 1. We're already down to 4 players, so there's blood has been spilt, okay? You're going to want to check that out. There are some fun hands in there for sure. Before we get started, this Saturday, September 14th on Ultimate Poker at 2 p.m. there's going to be a $5 buy-in tournament with $5,000 added to the prize pool. So if you're in the state of Nevada, come on, join us, have fun. It'll be a good time. I'll be playing in the event and recording it for a video. So if you're within the state of Nevada, come hang out, join us. It'll be fun. And if not, don't worry, we'll do some cool things for you in your neck of the woods also. Don't worry. So yeah, let's get started here. This is the hand right after that big hand we just won. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm about to spoil it. So we had just made a really big hero call, and here we are, very first hand after that. Against the guy who opened here under the gun. This is M. Jorgensen, one of the two. I knew these two players headed into the event. I think I'd like to see me just call here. Something like that would be fine. Re-raising is also very fine. You know, we put him in kind of a weird spot. He can't go too crazy with a guy who has only 700k in the small blind. So I don't mind raising or calling. I do decide to call, which I think is fine. Look at that call. All of the chips is laid out. Pretty poor flop here for us. Facing a c-bet, I think we just fold. Yep, just let that one go. So my plan is to play pretty much every hand. You know, my plan is to pretty much just let every hand run, and we'll talk about everything as it happens. So yeah, having just made that huge hero call, we're going to expect people to probably bluff us a little bit less often than maybe they would otherwise. So we're going to have to do a little bit of adjusting towards that. We'll probably want to be a little bit more aggressive because people will probably be a little more hesitant to play back against us, having just made a hero call there. So I think that's pretty much all the adjustments that we'll have to make. Against the limp here, I think given that we haven't had this dynamic yet, blind versus blind, we're not really sure exactly what this player is doing. 2013 Jay Carver really wants to raise like just 100,000 more is probably fine. 125,000 seems good. I don't know what 2007 Jay Carver wants to do here. Check. All right. Friendly poker. Let's see it flop. 90,000 is a lot. I mean, with the stacks that we have, you know, being that we're so deep in position, our hand is actually not that bad. We actually have the best hand here some decent percentage of the time. In position with 2 overcards to second pair, usually a 10 or a queen is going to be good. Once in a while we'll call, and the turn card will be some sort of a brick, and he'll just check fold a slightly better hand, like maybe he'll check fold like an ace high or something like that. Or maybe the turn card is like the 8 of hearts and he check folds deuce 4 suited, something like that. So I think that 2013 Jay Carver is tempted to get in there, but I would actually bet quite a lot of money that 2007 Jay Carver just says no thank you. Let's see if I'm right. I was right. 2007 Jay Carver didn't appreciate the value of Queen 10 offsuit on a King 6 deuce board. So it folds to us here in the small blind. Looks like I decided to make it 160k, but I would have probably preferred to just shove. You know, if making it 160k here, if he shoves on us for 660k total, we have to call 500k more to win. It's going to be like 800k or something like that, 850. So it's going to be very close, mathematically speaking, and I think I'd prefer to just shove. Our hand is fine. We have 4.5 million. We put some good pressure on him. If he calls, you know, what do we care? We've got Jack 5 of diamonds. Run the cards, boys. Like, you know, I don't think we're too concerned if he calls, so I think I would have preferred to see us just shoving because I think this allows us to make the most mistakes, which is never a good thing. But we're not punished this time. We just take it and say, all right, there you go. If he had more, I could definitely see that. But I think given what he actually has stack-wise, I think that's probably a mistake. All right, so we got ourselves an all-in and a call. A little race, no big deal. M. Jorgensen then need his 5s to hold. All right, and he does. We're down to 3. 3 players remaining. First place is about 110k, which would mean to me that... Oh, I don't know why that moved me, but I'll move my camera. I'm glad I noticed. So I guess we'll just sit over here. So now we're down to 3-handed. Third place is probably like 50k, maybe like 40 something, like high 40s. Second is 70. First is 110. So pretty big payouts here. pallet jumps, raise here on the button, call on the big blind. So we're actually kind of deep now. You know, we've considering how short stack most of this final table was. We're actually getting to the point now where we're starting to be pretty deep. 50 big blinds effective here almost. So our opponent checks. I think that you have a decision here to make between checking back and kind of saying, like, I have ace high, but I don't want to put too much money in the pot. I kind of want to see a showdown, take a more conservative route and check back. Or we can bet with a hand like this and make it into more of like a kind of more of a bluff type of situation, although it's really not. It's kind of just, it's not quite as clearly purposed. So I prefer a bet in this situation, but I'm not really sure what I did back in 2007 here. I would imagine that I bet more often than checked, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a check as well. All right, bet. I like the size. 240 sounds good, and our opponent calls. So 10 and he checks. So now we've turned a gut shot. I think that given we don't really know our opponent too well, or maybe I do back in the day, given where I'm sitting right now, I'm tempted to bet twice here. If he has any jack, he doesn't fold. If he has a 5 or a 7, he might fold to 2-barrel. If he has a hand like, I don't know, there are going to be sometimes he has better ace highs and check folds, although I guess that probably raises pre-flop. If he has a hand like ace queen, he probably raises that pre. If he has a hand like 7-6, 8-7-8, I assume that hand will fold to double a barrel here. If we bet like 550k, he doesn't really want to be check calling here with like 7-6 and just hoping we give up. So I think I like betting turn and river, but I will say this: when you're three-handed in a situation like this for the very first time, and this was the case for me, you're a little hesitant to pull the trigger on these multiple barrels, and that's actually one of the reasons why experience is such a good thing in poker, because 2013 Jay Carver is like, let's fire 2 barrels, bitch. Meanwhile, 2007 Jay Carver is probably like, wow, 50k is a lot of money, or whatever it is we had already locked up at this point. And I'm sure I was feeling nervous at the time, so there's a chance that I played a little more conservatively here and just checked back. But I'd like to see us give him the business here. We do decide to check though. No business given. 10 of spades, river card, obviously not the best river card for us. Now that he checks, I mean, is it possible we could bet here and maybe get him to fold like a 5 or a 7? Maybe, but our story doesn't really add up. I mean, what do we have? Like 10 queen? What do we have? Like spades that somehow check back turn? I mean, it's kind of like an unlikely story. We do beat a couple hands also. Like we beat some 6-8 and 6-4, although you would assume those hands would bluff. But I think we probably just give up, given the way we played it. Oh, I decided not to give up. 2007 Jay Carver is like, get out of here, you little bitch. He's like, check back, no way. I don't really love this. I mean, I would imagine that if he ever has a jack, he never folds. If he ever has any pair, he's always tempted to call. Does this work often enough to show a profit? I don't really know. I will say that I don't really know my opponent, so maybe 2007 Jay Carver knew something that I don't know in 2013, but I don't really love this, and I would be just surprised to see this get through. It does get through. Okay, 2000 Jay Carver knew what he was doing. 2007 Jay Carver just got it right. All right, a little surprised to see that there, but hey, it worked out. So I don't love the line I took, but I guess it worked there. Decided to raise it up here with the deuce-8 offsuit, called in the big blind. Interesting situation on this flop. Definitely agree with betting to start out. You don't really want to check. What are you going to do? Check call? Oops, sorry. What are you going to do? Check call, and then what? You're in a weird situation where you've kind of played your hand like you have a weak pair, and guess what we have? So, given that poker is a game of deception, I think I'd prefer to bet and kind of pretend we have a hand as good as ace king or something like that, instead of check calling and kind of pretending that we don't have a very good hand, playing our hand as though we don't have a good hand, which is what we actually have. So against the min raise here, I don't really know how I interpret this back in 2007. This is a very opponent-based thing, and I don't know anything about this opponent at this point. I think that we could argue calling against this min raise here. That would be okay, I guess. But this min raise could be one of those situations where he's like, maybe he doesn't have an ace. I will risk the minimum to find out. That's a reasonable thing this could be, and perhaps by calling we'll just shut him down from doing other things. This could be a raise with the nuts type of a hand, like a ace deuce 3-5, one of those super strong hands he's trying to extract max value from. So I'm not really sure what to make of this, but I think our hand is just so bad that we just fold to this, to be honest. You know, all we did is raise pre-flop and bet. We can certainly have aces and diamonds, and like even like a hand as good as like deuce 5 probably continues here. But I think with our exact hand, we probably can just fold, to be honest. So okay, we did. 2007 Jay Carver agrees with me. 10-9 offsuit, certainly going to raise. Decide to make it 180K, which is a little bit bigger than standardly accepted these days. That's right, I'm 3x'd. Deal with it. Against the... Alright, I was going to say that I wasn't sure if I was going to defend or not to get to the 3x, but I decided to, which I think is fine. I mean, it's close enough to fine. Interesting that flop goes check check. When it goes check check on a board like this, I interpret it to kind of give us the green light that he probably doesn't have too much. He certainly is capable of having something sometimes, and some people are very, very, very capable of having something here. But more likely than not, I assume that he probably doesn't have something. And also, we did turn a gut shot. We have an overcard to top pair, so our hand is good enough here that I'd like to see a bet for like 240K. We probably get through like 40% of the time, and then some percentage of the time we can get him off on the river if need be. I like our sizing, and he decides to call. So at this point, I assume he has a hand like ace high. He might have like king 10 with like the 10 of diamonds, something like that would be a reasonable thing that he decides to check back flop and then calls when he has a diamond draw. You could have a hand as bad as just like ace 6 offsuit and just gave up. You could have a hand that's like a weak pair, like a 4-6 offsuit, that kind of a hand, and didn't want to bet on flop and then calls on turn. Putting all of those things together, this isn't like a clear decision whether or not you should bluff. I mean, I feel like, given all that, it's not a clear decision. However, given the fact that we have 10-7 offsuit on this board, there's not too many times that we have hands worse than 10-7 offsuit, and I certainly think a bluff is somewhat viable. I think that it wouldn't make much sense to bet like 800K, right? Because we probably don't have too many ace-high flushes, right? Because if we have ace-high hands, we are at least somewhat likely to re-raise pre-flop. He has more ace-high diamonds than we do in the big blind, right? That's the best way to put that. So I think that all in all, it makes more sense for us to try to bet an amount like 420K, something like that, and see if that gets him to fold a hand like a 5 or a 4, or if he has a hand like ace jack of hearts, which maybe called turn kind of loosely. We want those hands to all fold, and those hands should all fold for like 400K. So I think I like a bet size here of around like 375,000, give or take, but I have no clue what I did back in the day. I wouldn't be surprised to see myself just give up, but anything can happen. I have no idea. 600,000. I like it. It's a little too big, I think, but not that much too big. Given how unrefined my bet sizing was in 2007, I think 600K is pretty close to being where I want to be at. You know, is it a little too big? Definitely, but I think it's pretty effective all in all. And he min raises us, so you know, that's that. That is that. Is it possible that he bluffed us? Yeah, it's certainly possible, but I mean, I doubt it, but it is certainly possible. So I actually think we played the hand pretty close to fine. It just didn't work out for us. So we've got ourselves a 3-way horse race here. Everyone's pretty close now. Decided to raise it up with Jack 6 suited, certainly fine. Coming in on the button. All right. So we've got ourselves a game here, boys and girls. We've got ourselves a poker game. King 6 suited. I think I'm going to just fold to the 2.5x. Re-raise here from VT Laxer. First time I've seen a re-raise out of anyone, right? Three-handed. And first time I think I've seen a re-raise out of him. Definitely raising it up here with 6-4 suited. Pretty good flop for us as pre-flop raiser on the button. Certainly going to start with a bet. Decides to call, which is interesting. Pretty good turn card. I'm a little concerned here at this point. I mean, obviously we have 6 high, so we're likely drawing or near dead on the flop when he calls. We do turn the best card in the deck for us, or one of the best cards in the deck for us at least. So I'm certainly going to be betting here twice. If I don't bet here twice, I'm going to be embarrassed. I'll be ashamed of myself if I don't bet here twice. You know, we assume he's going to fold like a 7, you know, even like hands as bad as like, he can have hands like queen 10 here very easily, and like 10-9 that will fold to a second bet. So we really need to be betting here twice. I would really, oh my god, wow, that is terrible, wow, that is awful. What was I doing? Now watch, the river comes a deuce and he bets 200K and we just fold, and meanwhile he can have anything. Oh my god, this was terrible. And now he checks. Now what do you do, stupid Jay Carver? Now what do you do? Oh, this is embarrassing. I just check. Okay, we're playing friendly poker. Oh my god, that was terrible. 2007 Jay Carver, you're a trash. And I just check Queen Jack offsuit here in the big blind. Sure, okay, everybody. Just go right ahead. Come on in. Alright, at least I won that pot post flop. Oh my god, that was terrible. That was a terrible turn check back. That was atrocious. Really, really poor. I'm sorry you guys had to see that. Alright, so we raised here pre-flop. Sorry, I'm a little jittered now because I was a little shaken. That was so bad. I'm shocked. Hey, at least we've improved in the 6 years because, man, that is something. Yeah, I've got 6 high. I'm just going to check this one back. Yeah, that sounds good. So I believe we raise here pre-flop. We also bet this flop. On this turn card, I think we have a decision between check calling and betting. I would assume that he isn't folding too much on this turn card. You know, 8 usually will improve him. He's got to have some sort of pair and straight draw here a good percentage of the time. Even if he just has a 10 or a jack, he's certainly never folding if he has, like, you know, I don't think he folds here too often, but our hand is too good to just check fold. So I think we have a choice between check calling and betting. I think I actually like check calling better. I do check is fair enough. And we just rip the old bink ball. We just drill the old 9-ball Toshiba style on the river. So the question now is, what do we do? Do we check or do we bet? So I think there is an option there. I think checking is certainly viable because, you know, you have to imagine that a good percentage of the time here he'll have a queen or a 7 and he'll bet. Also, if he has a hand like a 5 or just like a random nonsense, like maybe he has like king deuce of diamonds, those hands are likely not going to just check. And even if he does have a hand like king deuce of diamonds, we still want to check to that hand because that hand's certainly not going to call. So I think that checking is a very viable option on the river. However, I think I prefer to just bomb it here, just to make it like 650k. There's certainly an option to overbet, actually, which is not something that I think I had in my arsenal in 2007, but I think that it's an option also to bet like 1.1 million. You know, if you think he's strong here for some reason, like you're playing live and you see him over there and he's all excited or something, like, if you know your opponent, an overbet is certainly a viable option here, but I have no idea what I decided to do in 2007. And of all the hands we've looked at, I actually kind of would defer to my 2007 self here. So if I decide to check, then I must have had a good reason to do it, like I must have known my opponent or something. And if I bombed it, then, you know, I think the 2007 Jay Carver probably, with reads, made the right decision one way or the other. 600k seems like a good size, and we do pick that up there. So we did recover from that. Wow, surprising to see him call with just a 9. That is a really good bet by me there because that hand was not going to be betting itself, you wouldn't think. So we've got that done there. So nice. Oh, did I hit play again instead of next? Yeah, we're reliving the glory moment. Oh, call with your king 9. You have got nothing. You're so dominated. And now we check. Perfect poker. Perfect poker. Bet, call. Thank you for playing. All right, we relived our glory moment there. Hope you guys enjoyed that hand twice. Folding the button here, a 7 deuce seems all right. I mean, certainly can't be too bad. Gonna try to not pause it too much because otherwise this will be a 12-part video series. So we defended with king 10 suited in the big blind. Not the best of flops with the king 10 of spades. Check, check. I would like to see us fire a tiny bet here, but I would guess that 2007 Jay Carver is like, no, thank you. Okay, decided to give up. Pretty standard, I suppose, if you don't want to bet turn, which is fine. You know, it's close, that's for sure. So folding the 10-9 offsuit here in the small blind seems reasonable enough. VT Laxer decides to check raise here. Interesting flop to check raise on texture-wise because it's so dry. You know, so what kind of hands is VT Laxer check raising here in the big blind? I mean, I don't know for sure, of course, so we're just guessing. So I think that given that the board is so dry, you know, he doesn't usually have 2 queens because 2 queens would probably raise pre-flop. So he has 6s, deuces, queen 6 suited maybe, and like ace queen, king queen, queen jack. I don't think this guy's proven himself to be capable of calling with hands like aces or kings in the big blind, so you really can't give him credit for that. So you would expect in this spot that M. Jorgensen has the best hand more often than the big blind, but against a check raise like this is a good spot to check raise because the button doesn't usually have a hand that is super strong. Like, yes, he's more likely to connect with this board before we see action, but against the check raise here, what do you do with a hand like ace jack? That is probably the best hand, but not necessarily. Like, you know, what do you do with a hand as good as even like queen nine? You're like worried with queen nine. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna go broke to a set here or something, you know. So it's certainly a good spot to check raise, test your opponent, risking 600k to win 600k. So you're getting a pretty good price, and it does get through. Nice little check raise, and he shows it. Get out of my face! Get out of here with your c-betting. He just gets it done there, just slams it on the table. All right, 7-5 offsuit here in the big blind. We do get a walk. Walk it out over there. King 6 suited. Call seems fine. I like that. And let's see a flop. The old 999 flop. I don't really love betting here because like betting doesn't really accomplish a ton. You know, what does betting accomplish? He folds hands worse than ours and calls hands better than ours, right? I don't really think this accomplishes a ton. I think check calling would be fine. And now I would really hope to see a check call because once again, that's even more true now. And here we are again, same decision. Like he's never folding a better hand, never calling with a worse hand. We could win. It's possible. We do win here. He had queen high. So we got our one street of value against the queen high, I guess. That's one way to do it. I would have preferred to have just check called, I think, and then done something else later. But I guess we probably made the same amount of money anyway, given his exact hand. So this hand, blind versus blind, was limped, and then min bet on turn, and now min bet on river. 8 has to be the best hand. It would be crazy if it wasn't. 8-4, no good. 10-7 offsuit here in the big blind. We defended this last time in this situation, so... Oh, but not this time. Okay. I would imagine that I actually tightened up, maybe correctly, even given that VT Laxer has been getting it done, you know, he's just check raised Jorgensen. Maybe I just felt like I should give him more respect there. It's a close call anyway, and I don't even think it's necessarily a good call for a 3 times the big blind raise. So I think it's fine to fold that there, but just interesting to see that I changed my mind in like 10 hands on what I was going to do there. I assume we're just going to be mucking that one. So yeah, burning through these hands here. 5-star offsuit. Okay, let's call. Seems fine. Hopefully I bet. Thank you. No more embarrassing hands, please. We turn a double gut shot. 2013 Jay Carver loves double gut shots, but maybe I decide to do something else back in 2007. I'd really like to see think about how many hands he has here that are. We just saw him call with Queen 5 offsuit on the 999 board. Like we saw him call with King 9 on, I guess that flop was fine. But we've seen him call often enough now that I think that I'd really like to see me bet here on the turn. He'll definitely fold hands better than 5 high, so I would like to see us bet. He does call, so we're going to need some... All right, that will do it. This is close between betting and checking. You know, I think that we've actually been betting at these types of rivers pretty often, so I like betting here also, actually, because there's a chance that he'll try to raise this as a bluff. He'll also raise this for value, which sucks, but he might try his like min-raise river thing as a bluff. He might. We've seen him min-raise in spots where he could be bluffing, so maybe he'll try that here. He decides to just fold, though, which is probably worth noting. That's one of those situations where I would love to see in real time how long he took to make that decision, because if he took a long time, that would tell us something about his hand strength there. But with this, there's no sort of timing, so hard to really tell. Blinds went up to 40K, 80K. M. Jorgensen limped, and we checked in the big blind. Flopped a purr, and then bet when checked to. Decided to check back on this turn, which is probably incorrect. We should probably just be betting turn for straight up value and protection. And he does check. At this point, I guess checking is fine. Yeah, I wish we had just bet turn, but decided not to. That would have been the correct play there. He might have even folded that hand, which would have been fine. And if he didn't fold, we're actually betting for value, although we do chop very often. Raising it up here with a7 offsuit, certainly fine. Attacking with an ace on the button. The blinds having gone up, it does make M. Jorgensen a little bit shorter. You know, he's only got 20-something, and then VT Laxer's got 30-something. So we're a little bit more in the push-fold mode than we were in not that long ago. Interesting limp here. I actually like this raise. I was going to talk about it, but I think we'll just go with it. I actually really like this raise against a guy who we've never seen limp before. I definitely like this. I would bet quite a lot of money that I will disagree tremendously with my sizing on this flop. The correct bet sizing here, in my opinion, is like 280K. If you imagine the story you're trying to sell here, 280K tells that story and is just as effective as betting 500K, only it's even more effective than 500K because, again, it tells that story that even better. Like, what's the story we're trying to tell here? He limped or we raised. We're trying to tell the story of that we have pocket jacks. And if we're trying to tell that story on this flop, we're so happy with 2 jacks. Why would we bet 500K with 2 jacks? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, we're given that we would try to give the illusion of weakness, why would we bet 500K? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So 280K would be like a really great bet size here that probably accomplishes everything we could ask for it to accomplish when we have this hand in this exact scenario. So I would imagine that 2007 Jay Carver was just like herf derf bet 600K. But maybe I don't. Maybe I surprised this in a good way this time. Maybe I just check fold. That would be awful. But maybe, who knows? 500K. Yep, not too surprised. Not too surprised. What's finesse? No one knows. No, I will say that bet sizing principles and theories have come a long way in 6 years. 2007 bet sizing was not really a hugely developed concept. It's definitely evolved a lot in the last 6 years. But interesting to see that, that particular kind of thing, like all those guys that really developed those like strong bet sizing thoughts, I don't even know if they're playing poker at this point, like the Sauces and Junglemans of the world. Like, were they playing poker in 2007? I'm not even sure they were, or they were probably at a similar stage to me if they were playing. I don't think they were playing super high stakes or anything. And those guys were the ones that really, like, not those two only, but those guys were the ones that really, to me at least, influenced my game into incorporating the smaller bet sizes. So decided to min raise here with deuce far offsuit, but it worked. So okay, cool. I talked about it before, testing your opponents and trying different things and seeing how they react. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with trying it there for what seems like it's going to be a little bit of a longer match. I'm happy to do it. Definitely gaining some momentum here as M. Jorgensen gets shorter. Both of them are starting to be a little bit tighter. We've got a couple walks in there. People have folded to raises, so just limped folded here with 9 deuce suited. I guess it's fine. I don't love it, but I think it's fine. Exactly fine. 200,000 on the button. Still haven't seen M. Jorgensen shove against the button open. I don't know if he still plays poker. I think he does, but I'm not 100% sure. But I bet you he's way more aggressive these days. I mean, everyone is. Just 2007, like, even push-fold math wasn't really as established as it is now. It was a wild, wild west back then. So I decided to bet here with the ace-5 offsuit on the flop, which doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest with you. Like, again, what am I accomplishing? Very good question, Jay Carver. I don't know what you're accomplishing on this flop with the bet. And now here we are on the turn, and this is a weird situation because what in the world does he have? I mean, we limped pre, he checked. We bet flop, he called. Now he bets 320K into 390K. What story are you trying to sell me here? What do you have? You have a 10 betting 320K? I doubt it. That seems so unlikely. How do you have a 10? That just seems so hard to have a 10 and bomb it, because we so often will just fold to 320K. If he had a 10, why wouldn't he bet 200K or 210K? And of course, a lot of people watch these videos and they're like, oh, if they know that, of course they should bet 320K. And that's actually true, except for the fact that they don't know any of that. So, we don't, as far as I know, we don't have any kind of dynamic where that would be correct to, exploit that. So, he hasn't, there's no videos that he's watched of mine or anything like that at this point. So there's no reason to expect him to have concocted the strategy with a super strong hand. And we do beat a lot of hands that call this flop. So many floats and straight draws and stuff like that. And we've seen him call with some lighter hands before. He knows the value of queen high. He called with queen 5 on its 9-9 deuce board or 9-9-9 board, whatever it was. So I think I'd like to see me check call here, but I would bet that I just fold. Yep. Yep. I think ace-5 is just too good to fold there, but at the time, my thought process was probably something closer to the thought. Instead of all those words I just said, my thought process was probably something much closer to, I don't have he bet a lot, fold. That was like probably much closer to my thought process back in the day than all those words I had just said. As my poker game evolved so much from 2007 to 2013. I mean, this, like I had said in the last video, this was like, this tournament happened during my first trip to Vegas. I was still 20 years old, so I wasn't like, I was just, I hadn't met too many other poker players yet that had evolved my thinking. Oh, this is interesting. So I guess it's not actually too interesting because we just called in position with King 7, which I think is fine, and then he bet this flop, and our hand is too good to do anything besides shove. You know, he only has 1,000,000 chips, so I'm fine with blasting it in here. And we are ahead, but not by much. Gonna need to dodge a 3 or a heart. Alright, looks like we did it. So we're heads up with a 6.6 to 2.4 chip lead. This was probably my first time getting heads up in this kind of a situation. I mean, for at least this much money, that's for sure. So, you know, we assume that like second place is something like 70K, first is 110K, so it's like a 40K heads up match. Certainly the biggest stakes that I had played at this point in my career by far, I'm sure. At least fairly significantly. So I raised button, he had called. Betting flop seems pretty normal. Check raise, I guess we just fold. Kind of a weird to see him check raise there. I assume he has something decent for this size that he check raised it to. But yeah, you know. So got ourselves a little heads up match here. We haven't really seen too much. I mean, we've seen enough from this guy to have kind of some expectation. We know he's going to be a little bit more aggressive than the other guy would have been. You know, he's been kind of aggressive pre-flop. My favorite hand, 3-5 of spades. We've seen him be a little more aggressive pre-flop. He's made some check raises post-flop. So this guy certainly seems pretty decent. He's put us in some good situations. He's played some hands really well. So strategically speaking, this is a weird raise, bigger than 3x. Defended here with a7, which seems fine. Strategically speaking, I think we're going to want to start out with like raising most of our buttons. If I could go back and coach myself, I would tell myself to, I guess we just lose this hand. I would just tell myself to raise smaller on the button against the guy that's going to be re-raising us in the big blind a lot. But, you know, 2007 Jake Carver didn't realize these things, so very apparently. So I think I would tell myself to try to be a little bit tighter, slightly tighter in the big blind, slightly tighter on the button, raise smaller. I like this limp calling thing. Was something else I was going to get to. That against a guy that's going to be a little bit more aggressive pre-flop, I'm totally fine with mixing in limps pre-flop as well. I think that's a good way to combat that. Not maybe with as bad as hands as deuce 5 suited. Also, not bet on this flop when check to is just catastrophic. Like if you're not betting on this flop when check to with this hand, betting something at least, you know, there's probably not a profit to be had with this hand if you're going to play it this passively. You know, because once I check back this flop, you're for sure losing the hand, because if what is he going to do? Just check it down? You're trying to make a pair? It's just incorrect thinking. So in not too long of a time, we've given him about 1,000,000 chips, which is kind of unfortunate. Ace queen here, not a bad start. Pretty good flop also for us. Bet seems fine. All right. So far so good. Ooh, interesting turn check here. I think that I think that my old thought process was a little bit more like worried about things. Like it was like, oh, I have top pair. I don't have top pair anymore. I better check. And I think that's actually maybe a common thought process. But when you really think about it, what kings does he have? You know, how does he have that top pair? Yes, I don't have top pair anymore. But how does he have better than top pair? How does he have a king? You know, like he has to have king 8, ace king maybe that called preflop. He would just re-raise that preflop, right? So he has to have like king 8, king queen maybe, king 6, probably only king 6 suited. So, you know, there's not too many kings. Like the king is pretty bricky. And if he has a hand like queen 10 or something like that, he might interpret, and you know, this is not for sure, but he might think that we're going to be bluffing on the king a lot. We could have 2 spades, we could have jack 10, we could just have some random hand that just sees a king and is like, that's a good card to bluff. So given that we do want to bluff on this turn card some percentage of the time, we should definitely be betting a hand as good as ace queen. But I decided to check back, which is probably okay, especially against a guy like this who might try to bluff on the river. Although we haven't seen him just like bomb it with like nothing here. That's a very scary river card because it does some connecting, obviously. He checks, and I think that I would like to see myself bet but I wouldn't be surprised to see a kind of a tight check here. I mean, you would guess that he has something, because if he had nothing, he would probably have just bet this river card, because it's kind of scary. And all we did was raise pre-flop, bet, and then check turn, so we could have nothing, so or at least a hand that's kind of weak. So I think when he does this, he has a hand that has some showdown value, and very rarely has us beat. So I would love to see me bet like 400k here. I think that would be lovely. Oh, 400k, just binked it perfectly. We were in sync there. That was great. All right, it's fantastic. I love when I see that. That was great. Exact bet sizing. I haven't reviewed this hand history, although I did remember the deuces hand, obviously, from last video. So that one's stuck in the memory banks. The rest of them, I hadn't reviewed the rest of the hand history, though. So, all right, picked up that there. Nice little walk. I'll take it. So I feel pretty good about this. I mean, like, judging. Oh, this is interesting. I was going to say that judging by the way that we've seen this guy play, I think that obviously the chips are 2-1 in our favor. So we were probably like 70% to win this heads up match. I probably had a small edge. I don't know exactly how good I was back then, so I can't really handicap it perfectly. But I think we're probably like 70% to win this heads up match. At the point of where we started, and I feel pretty good about it, even at this. I mean, obviously I know the result of it, but I feel pretty good about things all in all. Like, I think our styles match up pretty well. I've always done better against the aggressive guys, so my style matches up well against that. So I remember at the time being excited and feeling like I had a slight edge, although not tremendous, of course. So I raised here and he called. I raised here. Yeah, that's what happened. I raised here and he re-raised and I called. And on this flop, I think we just fold. It could have been more interesting if the flop was a little bit better. But we finally had a hand to combat his 3-bets with, but didn't end up making much of a difference. I think that was reasonable though. We raised, had to call. I think that's fine. Big shove here for 35 big blinds. Got to just fold, of course. Interesting to see him do that. Not really sure why he decided to shove there. But he did, so definitely going to be raising it up here with 4 or 5 offsuit. God, I wish I had just learned how to min raise. Daniel Negreanu, where were you in my life at this point? Teach me to min raise, please. Go back to 2006 and just tell me to just make it 2x. Min raise it, dealer. All right, defended here with a6 offsuit. Flopped a 3 flush and 3 straight, but I would guess I'd just check fold. 500k is too much to really do anything about. When he's going to bomb it, you got to play kind of fit or fold, and that's certainly not fit. Raise it up here at jack 5. Pretty good flop for the old jack and the 5. I like a bet. Oh, here we go. Oh, I just had to call. Interesting. I was so sure I was going to just re-raise, but no, decided to call. Okay, how do I feel about that? I mean, I assume that we're just so crushingly ahead. We've seen him check raise bluff, so we do want to call and give him a chance to barrel off. I actually think I kind of like this call here, tricky as it is. Like, I think I kind of like it. In the moment when I saw it, I was like, I probably should just shove, but I think I actually prefer calling. 2007 Jake Carver. Impressing me. That was a good one. Oh boy, we went from impressing me to embarrassing me very quickly here. So when he check raises and checks, what's the story he's telling us? He's telling us that he probably doesn't have anything, or he has a hand that he's like not comfortable with, at least, because why would he ever check raise and check, right? So instead of shoving, which almost never works, because if we shove, what does he call with? He has to have like king jack and then like check call. He had to have king jack and then like just call pre-flop, check raise flop, and then check turn. Really? Is that realistic? Probably not super realistic. It's possible, but not probably the best play. I think, in my opinion, the best thing to do here is to bet like 550k. Something that could just be perceived as weak. Give him a chance to attack us. It still protects our hand. We still get value. Stacks are so shallow that you're still threatening his whole stack. But we're playing a little more deceptively, representing a wider range of hands, and he does fold. So I don't really love how I play the turn. I think I played the flop pretty well, but turn I think is a mistake. I think we should have just bet smaller on turn. So a tiny mistake probably, but maybe not like it's a moderate sized mistake. I mean, most likely he's just check folding, right? So it's not a huge mistake, because if he does have something that's worse than us, he is gonna call if he does happen to have a jack, I think, at least some percentage of the time. But I'm not too happy with how we decided to play that on the turn. Pocket kings, decided to raise it up, of course. Oh, you're all in? All right, I call. Oh, super cooler. The old king ball. Yep. That is the end. We are the winner. $110,000. I remember for sure. I remember this hand when I had got. I remember winning kings versus jacks and flopping the king and just being like so happy. I mean, I remember being ecstatic. I actually remember calling my parents, who were in the East Coast, so it was 5:40 in the morning East Coast time, and I remember calling them and just maybe I called them like an hour later when they were awake, because they get up pretty early. I remember calling them, and this was the first moment that I remember my mother particularly being like enthusiastic about a poker accomplishment. Like, I mean, of course, I won $110,000 in a $200 buy-in tournament. Yeah, so they should be pretty stoked. But yeah, but that was the first day that I really remember my mom being like happy about poker and supportive and interesting and interested, and it was a turning point for my mother, I think, to actually like accept poker as a viable path for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, a little something different. We did a lot more like stop and chats and poker breakdowns and tournament stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. Any kind of feedback is always great. I love suggestions. I'm the delivery boy. You requested, I deliver it. It's great. So we'll be back with Run It Up tomorrow. I think probably Run It Up tomorrow, not 100%, but there'll be a video for sure. And I think that is it for me. So I will see you guys back for more tomorrow. Don't forget the tournament on Saturday, 2 p.m. Ultimate Poker. I will see you there. I will see you guys soon. Peace. Oh my God. Go away. All right. No, not going.